Zan, you've dealt with issues around digital publication and a kind of double standard at times between print and digital, or what have you found with that?
Well, when the iPad came out in 2007, or when there was imminently going to launch, I thought, well, this is great. There's going to be this democratization of comic books on digital format, selling them anyway. Kind of like what happened with music. So when you're an indie musician now, it's not very difficult to sign up for an account with a third-party provider, get your stuff onto the iTunes store, sell it directly, and then just promote it and sell it directly. It's really easy. So I thought the same thing is going to happen with comics. It did not happen. It still hasn't happened. And part of the stumbling block at the beginning, especially for queer creators who have the most to gain by being able to reach out directly to an audience, the content review policies that Apple had, and still has to some degree, blocks so much work from being able to be in their store. And I wrote a big article about it and talked about it. We cited several examples of things that were either getting blocked by Apple or blocked by Amazon, and stuff that wasn't really objectionable in the least. I mean, stuff like a curve of someone's butt was not allowed. And it was ridiculous, and it was only when this stuff came to light that they were embarrassed and changed their stance.
But decapitations are still...
But decapitations, A-okay, breasts, fine, but no asses. So there was a double standard with regard to heterosexual, homosexual content. There was a double standard with regard to stuff that was more established versus stuff that was more indie. That was the thing that bothered me the most, because the people who stand to benefit from it the most are not the big companies, but the tiny little companies. And they were getting shut out. So what I did was, when I finally figured out how to get the full-length Northwest Press books on iBooks, when I finally figured out just the technical hurdles to make them actually work as ebooks, I submitted them all last summer to make sure, or to this past summer, to see if they would take them. And they accepted all of them. I think that they've learned a little bit about content review, and that they really only need to object to just the most egregious stuff that they really, really don't want to associate themselves with.
Like ours.
Well, no, actually, like yours, maybe. Although the first book I submitted, and this is, I wanted it to be kind of like the test to see if this was going to be viable. The first one was Telling You the Meal, because I thought, here's a book that's an erotic book. It doesn't hold anything back. It has everything you would expect to see in porn, but it's a literary book and it has artistic merit. And I figured it, and won the Lambda, right? So I figured that it has a good pedigree. If they see this book and say the content bothers us, then they're not a viable option, because they're not taking into account the merit of something. They're just looking at like the technical, what it has, if it has penises in it or language in it or whatever. And so they accepted it, and every book I've submitted they've accepted. And I'm actually much more optimistic about the future of digital, because I think people are going to realize that you can't be the gatekeeper, and because if you are, you're going to make so many mistakes and everyone's going to start to hate you. And they really were getting so much flack, and deservedly so.
Well, I mean, I think you can't get away with that as easily in a world where it's interactive and people will respond in real time, right? So, Alex, you do pretty much all of your material on the web. How have you run into censorship issues, or as?
Well, the main issue I've run into actually has to do with PayPal. PayPal has also this double standard codified in their rules. The rules that are hidden, it took me like an hour of Google searching to find what their rules were on erotic content or adult content. And basically the rule is this: if it is digital, there cannot be any adult content at all. And they can shut you down, they can lock up your funds for 6 months. I know people who have gone through this. So, but if it's a physical good, like a video, or if you want to put the digital thing on a CD and sell it, if it's physical material, you can sell it to anyone in the United States, but not internationally. So there's all kinds of double standards there.
Steve, you have your work with Shirtlifter. A lot of your work was initially up on adult webcomics.com.
That's right, yeah.
And then you also do print versions of it.
Yeah. My stuff is kind of actually in between the Class Comics and the Northwest Publications problem. I've been turned down for being too pornographic, and I've been turned down for not being pornographic enough. Like places that are predominantly sex shops and they really want material that's erotic only, they look at my stuff and there's not enough money shots for that. And I've done that kind of work in the past, and I have no moral problems with it. I really enjoy doing stuff that was only erotic. But the stuff I'm doing now, it bridges the literary and the erotic. I see it being sort of a lot like the 1960s underground comics. I mean, Robert Crumb or Spain Rodriguez, they were very, very explicit in their work, but it wasn't the only, erotics were not the only thing that was going on, but they did not self-censor. So the trouble with stuff that's in between is it's too harsh for some people and it's too soft for others. So the market that I've created is really specific, and you almost have to do it on a case-by-case basis. You do it by building relationships with individual comic book and LGBT bookstores, and once they know you, they will take the time to order stuff from you directly. Cultivating international distribution. I've got a distributor in Spain and one in Australia. Amazon's Advantage program, as Robert said, they're really good and they take pretty much anything. So by putting together a lot of bits and pieces, I can kind of justify the print run, but it's hard and it takes a lot of work, and it's not something I'm especially good at or inclined to do. It would be a lot better. Even it's funny because self-publishing is so easy and cheap now. It's the easiest and cheapest it's ever been, and it became that way just as the infrastructure that would allow you to do that successfully collapsed. There's no bookstores, there's no distributors, and so it's a matter of like finding places to take 10, 20, 30 copies at a time.
So as with what Robert was talking about, a lot of this is about creating specific personal relationships with retailers, with...
Absolutely, like the retailers who sell my work, like they do well with it. If they know it exists and they take the time to like face it front out in stores and put a shelf talker on it or something, they get rid of it. I know it goes if they take the time to actually do that. But it's a matter of actually convincing them that you're worth the time.
So this is an argument for keeping retail spaces alive. I mean, in a sense, a lot of them are falling apart. It seems that just at the same time that we're dealing with a kind of paradigm shift in terms of queer media, ghetto, disintegrating, we're also dealing with bookstores in general falling apart. So how do you see your work selling in a kind of new world of no bookstores, potentially?
You mean the new kind of bookstores?
Or what, do you see like a new paradigm developing, or where do you think the future will?
I see that the independent bookstore is not going away, and in fact, LA's got a lot of good small independent bookstores, but they've survived by curating their selection and by not trying to be borders and not trying to do everything, and by saying the things in this environment are worthwhile and worth your time, and so if you can get the attention of people who have a space like that, then just people will at least flip through your book because they have a space that people pay attention to.
Right. Okay.
Whereas getting in borders, I'd be faced shelf in, and my spine is not that attractive. It's not gonna.
You've got a very good spine.
Thank you. No injuries as of yet.
Yeah.